Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sibme Coach Replay Show. I'm your host, Cory Camp, and I'm excited to have back on the show. I feel like we've done a really good job of focusing on science this year, and part of that is because I'm a big advocate of science, and it's kind of what brought my passion into education was science and working with students with disabilities. And so I always love when we have our resident science coach, Kathy Renfrew, on the show. If this is your first episode you're watching with us or with Kathy, I want you to know a couple of things about Kathy. First of all, she is one of our elite coaches on our virtual coaching team here at Sibme. In addition to coaching for Sibme, Kathy's a science coach for national math and science initiatives and an elementary science education specialist at the Wade Institute for Science Education. There, she develops and provides professional learning experiences for teachers. She's a huge advocate for every child in grades pre-K through 5 having quality science instruction each and every day. And she's been really focused in throughout this pandemic on what this looks like in the remote classroom and blended classroom. So I'm so excited to have you back in the show, Kathy. Welcome.
Oh, hello, Cory, and I'm very excited to be here again. It's always fun for me to have an opportunity to talk about the things I love. Teachers, coaches, children, science, of course.
Science.
And today I want to really think about how coaches can help teachers move science learning forward and how we can also provide opportunities for students to sense make and to really begin to think aloud, think in science.
Yeah. And I know you and I, when we were talking about this is your 4th episode with us this year, this is your 3rd. 4th will be in January. So what should we focus on? We've talked about the phenomena and how we can find things, use a protocol like notice and wonder, and find phenomena everywhere. It doesn't have to be something that we bring into a physical classroom. We can find it all around us. We talked about being able to make a little bit more time for science in your last episode. And then this one, I know you and I talked a lot about how there's just so much on our teachers' plates and how can we help them, thinking from that role of a coach or a leader, how do we share tools and resources that are going to lighten the load of the teacher in the classroom when they are focusing on science and not be another thing that they necessarily have to spend a lot of time working through a learning curve before they can really feel confident in using it in their classroom. So you've got some really great specific examples of tools and resources and strategies that coaches can do that, to lighten the load in the classroom and help teachers provide students with more opportunities to do science in their classroom.
Yeah, so I guess I want to start again by highlighting just what you said. Our teachers are doing an amazing job, but they're struggling. And maybe they're not struggling, but they're certainly juggling. They're juggling remote, hybrid, in-person, synchronous, asynchronous. I mean, who could keep it all straight and still try to teach every single day? So one of the things I wanted to talk about a lot here today is to share some of those tools, resources, and strategies that coaches might use to help their teachers get some science happening in the classroom. And one of the ways just to think about starting even is coaches can do some lesson planning, can do some curriculum development for teachers. Because if we do that as coaches, then that's one less thing that our teachers have to do. And actually, I know that that's happening a lot, that many coaches are doing just that. And they're designing curriculum, whether it's for science or for ELA or for mathematics. It's happening just for them to ease the burden of some of that.
Yeah. Well, especially because we've got some teachers who I know, like in our district, some of our teachers are teaching all subjects for the first time and probably a long time because they're the only online teacher. All the other teachers are working in person in the district. And so they are the fifth grade online teacher and so on. And so their wheelhouse may not be science or some of the other subjects. But then I think the thing that's most struggling with teachers is not just the technology and how to build relationships with our students, but then add on to all of that, I have to completely rethink my instructional scope and sequence and what are some reasonable things that we can do. And so I really do see coaches can really help lighten the load a little bit by helping just kind of make a plan that the teacher can then move from or use as it is. So
yeah. I so agree with you. And one of the things I'm going to do for the rest of this show today is really talk about maybe some tools and some resources that coaches can use as they're beginning to think about that. And these same tools and resources could be used by teachers with their students. Mm-hmm. So knowing me, and you know me pretty well at this point, phenomena is not far from my wheelhouse. It's always there, and it's always part of what I'm thinking about when I think about science. So one of the things that is struggling sometimes for teachers and coaches is to figure out where to find good phenomena that don't need to be phenomenal, but can just be used. So my go-to place is phenomena for NGSS. And Cory, I think, is going to take us there.
Mm-hmm. I am. So just a quick note, what I'm sharing my screen now, and this is all in the takeaways. So don't forget, you can go to learn.sibme.com and get yourself just enrolled in our free course on the Coach Replay Show. You can always tune into the playlist here, but every week we add new content for each episode. We've got takeaways. And so we're going to highlight some of them straight from here. So all the things that Kathy is talking about and showing today, you can go and grab these links right here. So this one is the NGSS phenomena, right?
Right. Phenomena for NGSS. And I can't wait. And I'm going to tell you about two of my favorites. So this is what you'll see when you open up the site. And it's phenomena for NGSS. And it has all of these visuals, all of
so these. Neat. I want to click on all of it. It's just
right. Yeah. But I want you to stop right here on this little girl and her water hat. I mean, I want to know how to do that. And if I want to know how to do that, I'm sure any kid is going to want to know how to do that. So it could be a great phenomenon as we move forward. I have one more down here that's a favorite. And though anybody thinking about force and motion, watch this little boy being pulled on the sled, the dog. What's happening there? Why did that happen? Those are all things that we could be thinking about. Another thing, I think that I want to say about this particular site before we move on is that there's lots of other things here. There's a blog and there's lots of other resources that can be found here. Mm-hmm. Okay, mm-hmm. So something else I wanted to talk about that we're not going to show, but one thing that coaches and teachers can be doing is helping students figure out how to collect and analyze data. I mean, weather data could be very easily collected at this point in time. You could think about citizen science units that are going on. There are places that you can go and find some of those units to go. And just citizen science, I have to mention a book. Lori Griffin Burns has a wonderful book on citizen science. So thinking about that, because I want to move on again, and I don't want to get stuck on some one thing, I want to talk a little bit about something else that I really think is important, and that's science notebooks. Mm-hmm. Science notebooks can really help the learning continue, the learning start. And especially, Cory, as we think about this remote environment, our kids are home, but they could be outside. They could be doing those notice and wonderings that I've talked about often here and really beginning to use the notebook. So this site that Cory's sharing is one of my favorites. It's from the California Academy of Sciences. And the reason I like it is that it really helps someone figure out how to build a science notebook. And I want to talk about that for a minute, because science notebooks there's no one size fits all. For some people, it's in their binders. It's a 3-ring binder. For other people, it's a marble composition books. For others, it's just a few pieces of paper wherever they can put it. And all of them are okay, depending on your purpose and your needs. But think about it, coaches. There's also, now in this remote world, there's also some digital helps. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we're not going to necessarily go there, but I want to talk about the 2 digital places that I was thinking about earlier today and will be in your takeaways. There's a place called a Padlet by Jennifer Wyburn. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Anyway, she does amazing things for middle and high school science and science notebooks. And then another colleague and friend, Leslie Gates, has done she's done an NGSS for K-5 science. And one of the sections of that Padlet is science notebooks. And there's lots of resources there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, that's something that can be added, right? I mean, we think about, I know whenever I was getting ready to go into Thanksgiving break, maybe not as much Thanksgiving break as the winter break, I was took some time to rest and recharge. And then I spent some time focusing on renewing some of the things that I was doing in my classroom. And so this is the perfect time after a break to start back. And all right, we're going to now we're going to start documenting everything in a notebook. We're starting our science notebook. So, and here's something I didn't notice before, because I hadn't clicked on the setting up your science notebooks link from your link that you shared with us, is look here, there are lesson plans in a sequential order, right? To think through what would be some of those lesson plans for getting that set up. There's some videos in here, some examples in here that you can use to, again, help a teacher design. Okay, what would that look like? How do we go about setting up our notebooks? What's the order going to be within that, so that we can start utilizing these? So I think this is a really great resource. I mean, there's much more than this in the notebook corner. It's great.
Yeah. There's also in the coach takeaways, there's another notebook resource mentioned, and that it was developed by the Council of State Science Supervisors, of which I'm one. And it has lots of resources to help you get started. And the idea of that with that document was created because we were in a time of COVID, and we were in a time of not having things ready for our students. So one of the things that happened was this group of amazing state leaders got together to create some documents. And this is one of them. And there are many resources and examples in this. Lots of links that you can click on. And I just want to point that one out. And I know I threw that one to your left curve, Cory. So
that's all right.
So
right. There's so many good things on this, right? And I think that this is valuable, right? That we get to just kind of take a peek and hear a little bit about why you think some of these tools that you've put on the takeaways this week are so valuable. And again, keeping in mind that as coaches, we can use this to provide those resources. I'm still in love with this one. This is where my kids and I are going to be after they finish school. Well, this one, I can't wait to talk through the sensitive plant and the beehive, and great resources to kind of use in a number of ways.
Right.
Even in ELA, I could share one of these photos and have a prompt with it and let them kind of write a little bit about it. We start to think about making time for science coming in from your last episode, and how can we integrate those other pieces, reading and math and writing and all of that into
Well,
into some of these things.
the other thing I wanted to talk about today for just a minute while we've got this focus is that one of the good things about us showing these to our coaches, showing these to our audience is, I don't know about anybody else, but even myself, and I'm always looking for resources, I felt like I was being fire hosed. So I wanted to take a few minutes to really show you and talk about why I chose some things. Yeah, and I could go through this site forever, Cory.
I know. I'm sorry. I forget I'm sharing my screen. I'm like,
So,
Yeah.
so I don't want, I do want to say that's something we really need to think about as coaches, that our teachers can only absorb so much, so fast, so quickly. So remember to go slow to go fast, as an old African proverb said.
Yeah. One thing I've been doing this year with those that I'm coaching is similar to what you're doing, right? I'll pick a single thing and say, let me tell you why I like this. And if you're looking for this, like, keep watching this video, and I'll just make a little 5-minute explainer of it so that I'm not just sending a link and a lot of text and yet another email that teachers are receiving, but they can, on their own time, kind of watch through it. I can talk about the specific things I want them to notice. And then it's a resource there for them, and they can come to me if they want to explore more or if they're interested in using it. And so I've really liked that strategy in my Coach Toolbox this year. It's worked really well for the teachers that I'm supporting online because they have so much, it's overwhelming, right? And we want to make sure that we kind of provide those resources, don't keep anyone held back, but we also don't want to overwhelm any more than already there.
So the last thing I want to share today is a Padlet that I created. I created with the help of other teachers about picture books that can be used in science. And picture books can be used in science. Oh, my favorites. There are so many favorites here. But I want you to stop on scientists, who do you see? It's a takeoff on brown bear, and it's a way to have children see themselves and as scientists. And I could recite the whole thing, but I won't. Scientists, who do you see? I see Marie Curie looking at me. Marie Curie, who do you see? I see children looking at me. All right.
I love it.
So let me get back into my serious coaching piece. Put on my coaching hat. One of the things I really want to talk about is that using books and text in science, can be somewhat controversial. It's so necessary. It's so important. But I'll be very honest, I have a bias about usually using picture books or any kind of books prior to investigation. But I'm getting beyond my bias. And the reason for that is I really believe children should have the opportunity to explore and develop conceptual knowledge first. And then we provide additional information. I'm getting beyond my bias a little bit when I say
you're able to flip it around just a little bit.
And one of the ways I've been thinking about doing that, because especially as elementary teachers, we love picture books. I mean, we just do. And is the idea of using a book. You've got your science unit and you've chosen your science unit, but you want to use a book that's really going to help engage your students in that investigation. So you might choose to read aloud. So for example, here's The Mystery of the Missing Hummingbirds. I might choose to read aloud just one paragraph of this book and stop. And I would stop so that my children could then begin to notice, wonder, and probably do some investigation. Another one that just hasn't made it to the Padlet is called Be a Friend to a Tree. Oh, nope. I'm sorry. This is the wrong one. Our tree named Steve. I have another one called Be a Friend to a Tree. But one of the things, the other thing for that Padlet, the other reason for using that Padlet is that we have gotten into some investigations. We've explored, we've figured some things out. We've found some evidence, but now we want to support our claim with some additional evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another reason that we might use the picture books. The other reason is we might use picture books like, go back up again, Cory, this one right here, The Watcher, to help introduce our students to some scientists. This book is about Jane Goodall as she observed in Africa and observed all the time. The other thing is that sometimes we might decide that we want to really use a piece of text in a way that we might use it in literacy. So in literacy, we might choose to do a close read. And one of the resources that I've included here is the symbols that I have specifically worked around to be for close reading in science. So anyway, I've spouted off a lot here. So
I mean, and there's more, right? There's more on the takeaways.
There's more on the takeaways.
Right? The choice board. Here's your close reading in science. So many wonderful resources that, as coaches, if we can take the time to look through some of these and share some of these, not all at once, but choose a few. If you can hear my kids right now, they're losing their minds. They want to go outside for recess. Choose a few of these for implementing, starting to just try it out a little bit, and then sharing with our colleagues how so-and-so used a particular book, and just to start to share out some of these different ideas for teachers. I feel like my teachers right now are just constantly looking for ideas and ways to refine and ways to support. So I love this Padlet. I think this is going to be the one I share with some of my teachers and coaches today. I know you were telling me about this, but I didn't realize how much work that you've put into this for sure as you're working with others. So great resources. Again, you can find those coach replay, this notes and takeaways document with all these resources and any of Kathy's past episodes right here on the Learning Center. Just go to learn.sibme.com, download those for free, always for free with us. So now, Kathy, I just wanted to take a few moments to talk a little bit, because our title of today's episode is supporting that sense making. So can you, as we kind of wrap up our show today, give us any tips as coaches in supporting that sense making for our students as we kind of think about all these different resources, the notebooks, the picture books, the different ways?
I think the biggest thing, Cory, is for us to really think about, for us to not be the provider of the answers, for us to become more of the questioners. So if students ask us a question, how can we turn that around with another question? Not to leave them hanging totally, but to find a way to scaffold their interest, so that they want to go and they want to do some thinking or some exploring on their own. It's like, making sure, so I'm just thinking about sense making and engagement at the same time. I'm thinking about, at the end of my science lesson, I want to end on a cliffhanger, because I want my students to come back wanting to know more.
Right.
Is there a place in some of those books that I talked about that you have that cliffhanger that you can then use to help them figure out the solution to the problem? It might be, the boy who harnessed the wind, thinking about alternative energy. Or it might be you want to use the Watcher to help your students understand more about observations. Right. All of those things that you're doing, everything we do in science, when we are helping students to sense make. So when we're coaches, when we think about wearing our coach's hat, we need to help our teachers sense make too sometimes. Because you pointed out earlier that science isn't everybody's bag. I'm kind of a crazy lady, and I'm not alone. There are lots of crazy people like you and me out there, but for some people, it's not their interest and it's not their comfort level. And how can we as coaches help them really grab onto being interested and engaged in helping their students with this sense making?
I love that. I think that's a great reminder for us, right? In this is, especially as we're doing a little bit of the heavier lifting and helping design the lessons and things, still keeping our teachers curious and engaged as well within this. So I love these resources. I know I'm going to be digging into them a little bit further and continuing to share them out. Don't forget, you can download or print out even the notes and takeaways, share them with others. Feel free to share this episode if you need to. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe to the Coach Replay Show so you can keep tuning in with us every week. Y'all, we are so excited that we get to continue to share these resources and bring in these experts like Kathy and Catlin last week. And if there's a specific topic that you want covered, put it in the comments, shoot us a message. Let us know if you need a specific subject or just coaching topic in general that you're interested in hearing more about.
And I'm going to put a high five to that. I went back. I missed Catlin's last week, but I went back and I listened, and because I so appreciate her work. So it was a good one. Coach Replay Show is doing a good job here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we are very proud of it. So tune in next week. Next week, I'm bringing back an older episode that's still super relevant. So next week, we're going to focus in a little bit on math with one of our coaches, Amy Youngblood, and one of the strategies she has shared with us. And I'll give you a little preview before that replay of that episode on how it's still relevant and how you can use that in a remote environment or hybrid if you're doing that. So tune in next week, y'all, for another episode of the Sibme Coach Replay Show. And again, don't forget to like and follow us. Kathy, we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everyone.